Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the CSTV. I'm your host, Kathleen Egaltoto, Madam CS, and this is The Striker. Stay tuned and have it raw and real. Kindly remember to subscribe, share, comment, and like this video. Ethiopia. It has been regarded for a long time as Africa's success stories, a country with 11 regions and the second largest population in the continent. However, for the last 2 years, there has been a problem in Ethiopia, a problem marked with fighting, conflict, violence, displacement, starvation, among other war-related activities. A conflict that the world has closed its curtain and assumed that is not happening. The question is, who is fighting? Why are they fighting? And could this problem in Ethiopia escalate to the point of the 1994 genocide situation in Rwanda? The CSTV welcomes you to go through the journey and have this discussion. Stay tuned and see you in a few. Welcome back. When the Prime Minister of Ethiopia, Abiy, won the Peace Nobel Prize, nobody ever thought that Ethiopia could be in a situation where it is right now. I mean a situation of anarchy, fighting, violence, and displacement. When the war broke out in 2020 in Ethiopia, many people thought that this could be a short-term conflict, that in a short time the two conflicting parties could negotiate or have a dialogue and come into a solution to end the conflict. Unfortunately, this did not happen, leading to a state of anarchy and fighting in Ethiopia as it is right now. One could wonder what was actually the cause of the conflict in Ethiopia. Who is fighting and why are they fighting? And what could be the implication of this fighting in the future of Ethiopia? Now, we need to go back to history and understand Ethiopia. First, Ethiopia actually is made up of 11 regions, and each of these regions has its own government. However, it is important to note that the federal government of Ethiopia has its headquarters in Addis Ababa. Fighting started in the northern part of Ethiopia, the Tigray region. And this Tigray region is largely governed by the Tigray People's Liberation Front. For 30 years before the Prime Minister Abiy came into power, the TPLF was in power, and they decided what happened in Ethiopia. This was the case despite the fact that this group consisted only 6% of the Ethiopian population, meaning they were the minority. Their leadership was marked with a lot of dictatorship and authoritarianship. So in 2018, out of a protest, this group's rule came to an end. And out of that, Abiy took over as took over power in Ethiopia. And when Abiy took over power, he tried to consolidate the government and the region, the 11 regions in Ethiopia. He tried to unify the people and he tried to centralize power to Addis Ababa, that is the headquarters of the Ethiopia's federal government. However, the Tigray People's Liberation Front was not ready to take part in this process. They were not happy that for long now they were out of power. And as such, in 2020, Ethiopia was supposed to have elections, and these elections actually were postponed. The reason as to why these elections were postponed, the government said it was because of COVID. However, the TPLF was not comfortable that these elections had been postponed. And therefore they said that Abiy was in power unconstitutionally. So they went ahead and carried their own elections. you know. So you see, already there's a problem. We have a government that is in power. The elections have been postponed, and the TPRF has come out and said that the government is in power unconstitutionally because of the postponed elections. So what happened? After calling out their own elections, the fighting started. The TPLF hit first. So they attacked the government armed forces base in Tigray. And then Ethiopia responded by sending the armed troops to counter the attack. Fighting continues, and the Eritrean forces had issues with the TPRF. As such, they joined the federal government armed forces against the TPRF. So within a short time, actually, the fighting fronts expanded. Now, it moved from just Tigray region to Afar regions and Amhara region. As this was happening, there's another group called the Oromo Liberation Army. The Oromo Liberation Army, that is the ORA, has its issues with APA. And these issues has to do with, political power, etc. So, they decided to join the TPLF against the federal government and the Eritrean forces. Why? At this particular point, they saw that they have a common enemy, who is APA. So, what was just a conflict between the TPRF and the federal government of Ethiopia now attracted other groups, other armed groups, and the conflict escalated, the fighting escalated, and eventually went out of hand. Now, so many armed forces and armed groups joined the fight, to an extent that the government now started calling people to join the armed forces in the fight. We saw last year when the Prime Minister of Ethiopia actually joined the forces in the field to fight as a soldier. And it is important to note that at first, the government, when the TPRF hit, at first, the government was in control. But within few days, the TPRF was able to reclaim, it is Mekele town, or a city where the government had taken over. How that happened, nobody understands, because at this particular point, the Eritrean forces and the federal government forces were working against the TPRF. So for a long time, after they recaptured Mekere, TPRF has been actually under control. But now the fighting is not happening only on the northern part of Ethiopia. It is expanded. It is expanding. It is coming down to almost Addis Ababa, where actually the TPRF wants to take over the control of the government's headquarters. Now, that is the state of that conflict. A conflict between people who had been in power for 30 years, a minority group that felt that APA is in government unconstitutionally, and therefore decided to carry out elections and overthrow the government. Now, as the situation is it right now, it's like the world has set its curtains against Ethiopia. And I'm saying this because we've seen less of the international community involvement and intervention in Ethiopia's situation. Compared to the situation in Ukraine, the world is not acting intuitively to reparate Ethiopia in the situation it is today. For example, look at the budgetary allocation the US gave to Ukraine and look at that same budgetary allocation of what it gave to Ethiopia to avert the situation. It tells you that the situation in Ethiopia is not the concern of any international community per se. In reality, It may be the concern theoretically, but in reality, it is not. And this then reminds us of the situation that was in Rwanda in 1994. Sometimes back, I saw a post where President Paul Kagame had warned Ethiopia that if it continues like this, it may find itself in the Rwandan genocide situation. Fighting a minority group, it could lead to a situation whereby the Tigray are eliminated totally, and that it could be more of a genocide, that a mass cleansing of a certain community to get rid of maybe their stubbornness, to whatever the authorities may be thinking about. As it is right now, we have seen cases of sexual violence. We have seen cases of massacre. People have died in Ethiopia. It is crime against humanity that the international world is not talking about. The two sides are trading on food. The food that is coming to aid people who have been displaced, it's now being used as a weapon by both sides. And while this is happening, the question could be, what is the situation of the common citizenry in Ethiopia? Because yes, while we have the conflict between the TPRF and the federal government of Ethiopia, the truth is not everybody from the Tigray region is fighting. But the conflict is affecting those who are fighting and those who are not fighting. The world is standing, watching Ethiopians murder themselves, kill themselves, and pollute themselves. Maybe after they finished the genocide, they will meet, the superpowers will meet in the UN Security Council, and they will sit down and come up with a policy as a result of Ethiopia's situation. Just the way they did in 1994 in Rwanda. They watched Rwanda fight. They saw it murder itself. People killed each other. And then later, they went to sit at the UN Security Council to come up with the responsibility to protect. Now that we have responsibility to protect, why is the world silent about the Ethiopian case? How special is the war in Ukraine than another war that has happened in Africa, and specifically the war in Ethiopia? And perhaps now you could understand that the responsibility to protect actually is not responsibility to protect individuals from autocracies and massacres. Responsibility to protect is responsibility actually to protect individual countries, from getting the impacts of a certain conflict. I think that's what is it I'm looking at from that particular point. Everybody in Europe and Americas is talking about the war in Ukraine because then the war is directly affecting their livelihood. The cost of gas is going up, the cost of petroleum is the cost of oil is going up, and the cost of living actually is skyrocketing in Europe as a result of that war. So because of that, a lot has to be spoken about the war in Ukraine. Everybody's talking about, I stand with Ukraine, let's pray for Ukraine, the war in Ukraine should end. But for 2 years, Ethiopia has been fighting. Nobody said, let's stand with Ethiopia, let's end the war in Ethiopia, etc. It is a call to me, to the leaders in the Global South, the African Union. Where are you? One of our success stories, Ethiopia, is in a situation that really needs attention. What is the African Union doing with regard to this war? IGAD, the Intergovernmental Development Authority, where are you? It is so funny. It's ironical that Most of the peace agreements and treaties in Africa have been signed in Addis Ababa. But today, that peace is not felt in Ethiopia anymore. To the international community, are we waiting for Ethiopians to go to the 1994 Rwandan situation for us now to come in and start playing the International Criminal Court? You know, we talk about crime against humanity. Why can't we stop this crime against humanity? Instead of waiting for people to be massacred and then we start running to say who these people need to go to court, this needs to be taken here, etc. To my Ethiopian brothers and sisters, it doesn't matter from which side of Ethiopia you come from. Peace is more important and essential than anything else that you could want to look for. You don't have another country other than Ethiopia. Don't look at your brothers and sisters and see them as you are attackers of the enemy that you're supposed to kill. Peace will start from you guys, from the grassroots, embracing each other. You have been displaced, both the combat and the non-combat. Both sides are losing lives. You need to start embracing each other as brothers and sisters. You need to call for peace and spread this peace throughout your country. It has to start from you, because as it is now, the international community is not going to be the one to bring peace unto you. Perhaps a mediation is needed. Perhaps one party has to surrender and give up on this. Perhaps diplomacy is the best key that's going to help Ethiopia. But we should not have another genocide in Africa. Madam CS, the CSTV, what do you think? Stay tuned. Let's keep the conversation going. Comments. What do you think about the situation in Ethiopia? Is the government, is the international community actually doing the right thing? Are we headed to the Rwandan situation in 1994? What do you think should be done? Comment and let's keep the conversation going. Stay tuned and have it true and real.